Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon. It's Friday.
Hi, Nia.
Hello. I've got a really good topic to talk to you about
Have you
today.
now? I'm a
I
bit
have.
wary of your good topics because I have a terrible feeling you're about to put me in the hot seat.
I am. But that's okay because I have full faith in you, Maria.
Mm. Mm.
You sound
Go,
and look
you
mortified by
go,
this.
you go for it. I can
Okay.
just tell it's going to be controversial.
It might be a bit controversial, but I think it's worth talking about because at this time of year, so many
Yeah,
people are thinking about their health. And the one thing that I think overarches everybody's brains
yeah,
at this point is I have to lose some weight.
yeah.
Okay.
Weight loss,
And
my
if
favorite.
I know. And it's funny, isn't it? Because all of December we get bombarded with messages, enjoy yourself, relax, don't worry about it. You can eat whatever you want, have whatever makes you happy. And then January the 1st rolls around and everyone says, "Oh, you have to get off the sofa and exercise and eat well and stop snacking and all of this stuff." So there are many, many people who are now signing up for
Yeah.
weight loss programs.
So why? So what? The first question I would ask is, why are we so incredibly focused on weight loss and not health? And you could argue that the two things might, go together, but it's not
Mm.
entirely true. So we have this terrible thing in our world about being thin makes you happy, and there's a whole
Mm.
legacy of that. I mean,
Yes.
this is one of the issues. So it's a cultural
Definitely a
thing,
cultural thing. You're not
right? So
worth anything unless you're thin.
yeah. So
My generation grew up with nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, and that is
yes, oh God.
incredibly, as a
Yeah,
teenager growing up in that's incredibly
yeah.
demotivating.
I think it goes back even a lot further than that. I think,
Oh yeah,
even into
definitely.
the 30s, and there's been this thinness culture for a very long time
Mm, mm.
in the developed world, shall we call it. So that's the
S
first problem. So
Yes.
how does weight loss, how is it connected to health? That's the
Well,
next thing.
I think it's important to say that although I'm not a skinny advocate, as in everyone has to be a certain
No.
weight, basically because that's just not possible. Everybody is a different
Yeah,
body shape,
genetically
body type,
different. Yeah.
genetically different height, all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
we can't all be perfectly the same
No.
manufactured. We are all
No, we're all
individual.
different shapes. And if you
Yeah, so
look
there's
at
that.
kids in a row,
Of course, I
I
mean
don't know.
that makes me giggle more than anything else because you look at the infant school and you
Yeah.
look at like the year R's and then there are some really tall year R's and then there are
Yes,
some tiny,
exactly.
tiny, really tiny ones. So of
Exactly.
course we're all different and we have to accept that. But we do know that maintaining a healthy weight for your height, no matter what that weight
Yeah.
is much better for your metabolic health in that your body is much more able to run as an efficient machine if you
Mm.
don't carry too much excess weight.
So my whole argument about weight, and I go back a long way with weight in terms of the fact that I'm very interested. I've studied obesity in theory.
Mhm.
I'm very interested in weight management, let's say. But
Mm.
what I've learned over the years is it's all about metabolic health. So if you optimize your metabolic health, a very slick way to say it, um, your weight will sort itself. It might not
Absolutely.
sort itself into exactly where you would like it to be, but what it will do is it'll give you a sustainable, healthy way of weight management if you can increase your metabolic health. So,
Yeah.
metabolic health in our world is big. And let's think about, the huge burgeoning numbers of diabetics, for instance. So,
Absolutely.
diabetes is part of metabolic health, as is pre-diabetes, as is cholesterol levels, as our fatty livers, we can go on and on, higher blood pressures. This is all part of that metabolic syndrome. So
Mm.
I'm very interested in weight management from that point of view.
So, say now, then taking it back a step and saying, well, this is the time of year when people go on weight
Yeah,
loss programs. Do weight loss programs work? If you were to go on a
yeah.
restricted calorie diet, does it work?
Well, interestingly, of course, in the short term it does, because if you
Hmm.
decrease your calorie intake, and we'll talk about quality of calories maybe another time, but basically, if you've got a deficit where you're using more energy than you're taking in, you will start to lose weight. Now,
Okay.
unfortunately, when you look at what weight you lose, that's a whole nother thing.
Yes, that was my next question. What is it
So
that you're actually losing?
Right. So what you really want to lose is excess stored fat.
Of
And you
course.
have to start fat burning. So you have to start using fat as fuel to lose that. Unfortunately, your metabolism has some other ideas. And
Mm,
burning muscle is, funnily enough, much easier for your body
yes.
to source. So you will lose some muscle mass each time you go on restricted calorie diets to lose the fat. And the
Okay.
problem with that in the long term, it's not really a problem in the short term.
Because you
And
can
you
build that
can, of
muscle back
course,
up.
yeah, you can build your muscle back up, and that's the ideal. But you can imagine if you did cyclical restricted calorie diets where you
Mm.
lost fat and some muscle mass and then put the weight back on,
They
dear.
loosen the reins. So they and
Yeah,
it's gradually the previous habits of their lifestyles creep back in, which we know
yeah,
happens. You suddenly think, "Oh, I'm not on a diet anymore. I can eat what I
yeah.
like." And before you know it, they've put back all the weight they lost and sometimes more. And then they want to go back and do a restricted calorie diet again. So what often we hear is that they have gone back to this thing that previously worked for them,
Mm.
but then they're frustrated because actually it's not as easy the second time round.
And maybe it's even less easy the third and the fourth. And why is that? Well, it might be that each time you lose that little bit of muscle mass, and of course, you're losing muscle as you age anyway. If
Mhm.
your ratio of fat is now higher each time you start this regime,
Mhm.
that might be an issue because remember, your muscle mass in many ways dictates the quality of that metabolic engine you've got. So, which
Mm.
explains why, when you're a child, if you're fed nutritious food, and I'm not saying every child is,
Mm.
you generally will have a very nice threshold of using energy, energy in, energy out.
Yeah.
You might find at 20 you're still pretty good at that. For
Yeah.
some of us, we might have even gone a long way further down the line and been pretty good at it because we were active and we were in the lucky position of having access to good food.
Mm.
But you can imagine if you have gone back to your old ways, put on weight, and now put on more fat than muscle, which is
Yeah.
much harder to put back.
Yeah.
You're now in a worse position each time you start those restricted
Restricted
calorie
diets.
diets. So, this is what they sometimes call yo yo dieting, and it's disastrous for people, not only physiologically, but also psychologically, because each
Mm.
time you're doing this, you feel again that
That
there's,
you've
there's failure ahead somehow.
mm.
And
Mm.
it's nicely described in that great book, that we read called the Diet Trap Solution,
Mm.
where people are very excited about a new plan. And
Mm.
this is what happens in New Year's resolutions, by the way. They're really
Yes,
excited
yeah.
with their new diet plan. This is really going to work for them. And it does, because
Brilliant.
they
Yeah.
are restricting their calorie intake. It works even better if you look at the quality of the calories and the ratio of your macros. And that's
Mm-mm.
a whole nother podcast. But it does work, of course, if you restrict. Then, when you get to the point where you go back and on some of your old behaviors which you
Creep
haven't
in.
changed, off it goes.
Yeah.
But
So
and the real
effectively
depressing aspect of this is that you then feel like you're in a worse position than you
than
were
you were before.
before.
So effectively what you're saying is every time you do one of these restricted calorie
Yeah.
diets, you're never in the same position as you were the first
I
time you
don't
did it.
think so. I think
So you're never in the same body twice.
no.
Um,
You're never in the body same body twice. Yes, that's great.
so what, in terms of when we say to people, well, actually, your weight management is more about optimizing your metabolic health, which is a big phrase to say that people
Yeah, I
don't
mean, what does
understand
it
what it
mean?
means. But
Yeah,
what it essentially means is giving your body the quality of fuel that it needs to perform.
yeah,
And it's like putting um, petrol or
yeah,
diesel in your car. If you
yeah,
bought a
yeah,
Lamborghini, you wouldn't
yeah.
put the cheapo petrol station
The
stuff
rough
in the
stuff.
car. Yeah, you'd have to pay extra to get the best stuff for the engine because you want that. And your body is the same. So you're putting in the quality rather than the quantity.
So
And
we're
we
talking avocado and salmon in the Lamborghini, are we?
we are, yes. So this is the kind of thing. But we're not, there are other really good I think most people think, oh my goodness, that's going to be really expensive. But
Yeah,
it doesn't have to
doesn't
be.
have to be.
It's
No,
about choosing the most appropriate sources.
it's the
The
quality of those
quality that
calories that's
counts.
probably much more important.
But making some simple changes in terms of what you put
Yes.
in without having to count the calories is actually much more
So much more
important
sustainable.
and more
So
sustainable.
So you could just start by taking processed food out. No, let's not call it processed food. Ultra processed food. All
Yes.
food's processed, really,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
unless you're
yeah.
unless you're picking carrots out your garden. So
Yeah,
so ultra processed food, and we'll talk about that again in another time. But if you took that out of your life, and you
yeah.
took fizzy drinks out of your life, and you
Mhm.
took maybe alcohol out of your life, although that's controversial, and maybe you wouldn't
Well,
want to
maybe it
take
depends on
all
maybe how much
alcohol
you're
out your
drinking
life.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and what
Okay, if you
quality.
just did that and then you added some protein at each of your meals,
Yeah.
because protein's very satisfying, you'll find, and
Mm.
slowly, and if you didn't snack between meals, so this is what you could set yourself at, preparing food as a sort of mission rather than what do I feel like eating today? I'll pick up whatever.
Mhm.
Um, there's some sort of thought about what you're eating. Unfortunately, mostly you're going to have to prepare food and take it with you. This is a big change in how people live because,
It is.
often you went past the coffee shop and bought a muffin, had a little cappuccino just to ease into work, and then at lunchtime you went to the local takeaway and had a, I don't know, baguette full of whatever. So this is how people live. This is the normal way people live. And
Mm.
I think what you got to do if you really want to look at changing your dietary habits, particularly, is you're going to have to start looking at what you're eating as a whole,
Yeah.
and
But
then doing some awful preparing, which people really,
really
really
hate
don't want to do. But we've learnt, haven't we? And we can tell you all sorts of ways
tips and tricks
to
to
make
do
it
that.
work for
Yeah.
you.
I think so, ultimately it comes back to our overarching mantra, I think that you and I have, Marianne, which is start small, do a small
Yeah.
thing consistently.
Maybe just choose a better breakfast. Take ultra processed food out and choose a better breakfast.
I think that's a really important conversation to have as people sort of sign up to these
Yeah.
new and new ways of eating, and this I'm definitely going to lose weight because they say I am. Yes,
Mm,
you are, but it will come at a cost, and it may not be as easy the second, the third, the fourth time round as it would
mm.
be by making some small sustainable lifestyle changes now that will serve you better in the future.
Okay, lovely. And what we talk about next time maybe is the small changes we made that started the ball rolling for us and why we are both so passionate about helping other people to live healthier lives.
Yeah,
And here we
definitely.
are, health coaches, all this time later, and everyone has a story. It's how we got here, and we have sustained those healthier habits for a very long time. I think we have credibility, to put it mildly. Okay,
Cool.
cool.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Really interesting to talk about that too.
Yes. Listen
Cool.
next week. You'll pick up some great tips.